Welcome to the special meeting of the Burbank Police Commission, Tuesday, June 30th. Can I have roll call, please?
Commissioner Chapman?
Here.
Commissioner Cohen?
Here.
Commissioner Elman?
Here.
Commissioner Kobaisi?
Here.
And Chair Vest.
Here. And can I have everybody that's present in chambers stand for the flag salute? Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, first we're going to be starting off with oral communications. It's going to be 3 minutes for anybody who wants to call in and discuss matters of the police department. Do we have any callers? Okay. Moving on. There will be no response, and it'll be to the first item of business. Chief, to provide purpose of this special meeting to the Police Commission. Chief?
Okay, thank you. What I'd like to do is give some brief remarks as to why we are here, the purpose, and then refer people to documents that are online that they can refer to. So first, why are we here? This is all because of the tragic and horrible events that occurred recently in Minneapolis and other cities. So in furtherance of that, what I'd like to do is refer the public to documents that are on our website, burbankpd.org. So on June 5th, 2020, the Burbank Police Department published a memo to members of our community expressing our condemnation of what occurred in Minneapolis. So again, that document is on our website. The second document I'd like to refer to is a staff report dated June 16th, 2020. And in this particular document, it cites the fact that Councilmember Gabaletti requested a two-step report to assemble the Police Commission as a fact-finding body. So let me read just a portion of that report. Some of the discussion points to consider are timely and part of the national narrative are: number one, a detailed review and discussion of the department's use of force policy, the department's training curriculum specific to high-risk incidents, the department's disciplinary procedure and processes, review of departmental contemporary policies established over the past 10 years, community engagement, including town hall meetings and reaching out to different populations, such as high school students, to help focus dialogue, to suggest a few. So those are suggested topics for this evening. And what we want to do is hear from the community and hear from our commissioners in order to establish a greater list. The third document I would like to refer to is the Burbank Police Department's Use of Force Policy Reference Guide. We have all heard about an organization that has published an 8-point document, and that is commonly referred to as 8 Can't Wait. And what it does is cite such topics as the duty to intercede, de-escalation, the use of chokeholds. So for the public, if you are interested in those 8 specific topics, what we have done is provided a reference online where all you have to do is click a red button on our website, and it will take you to our use of force policy for those 8 particular items. And again, that's burbankpd.org. The last document I would like to refer to was attached to the agenda tonight, and that is the Charter of the City of Burbank. And one of the Police Commission's powers and duties, and that is the reason we're here tonight, is to conduct hearings, investigations, or both, at the request of council for the purpose of ascertaining additional legislation that is needed for the health, safety, peace, welfare of the inhabitants of the city, and to make findings and recommendations to the council. So our purpose tonight is to gather additional topics for consideration of the council. We have now been tasked with the responsibility of meeting monthly until the end of the year. So I would propose tonight, as we hear from the public and as we hear from the police commissioners, that we establish a longer list than what I've already read from of topics that we want to tackle. And then by December, I suspect we will be prepared then to have a written report and an appearance by the police commission for the council to consider. And that would be your recommendations on what possibly could be done to address concerns in this particular area. So with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Real quick, we have a caller. So if we go ahead and have them speak, name's Katie.
I'm going to turn on the camera because WebEx, they can't see you on the one next to it, that one. There you go.
Okay.
One more. Okay.
Oh,
And then click start video, the blue one. Yeah. Okay, all set. There we go.
Katie, are you there?
Yes.
Go ahead with your comment.
Okay. Hi, I wanted to say thank you so much for having this meeting and listening to the feedback from the community. Personally, I have only ever had positive experiences with BPD, and I am grateful for the work you do. I also understand, however, that I am afforded privilege by virtue of my white skin that not everyone is afforded. So I am mindful that my experience isn't the only one to consider as a member of this community. I noticed when the roll call was happening, I did not see I did not see black people on the commission. And so I think that's something we should look at as moving forward, what the makeup of our commission is. I also appreciate the responsiveness to the national dialogue about reimagining the way police departments function in communities. It seems that most people are in agreement that police are being called to situations where law enforcement officers are not the people best equipped to resolve that situation. Officers don't want to handle those calls, and they should not be expected to do so. I have recently learned about your mental health team, and anecdotally, I have heard wonderful things about them. I would love for teams like that to take on more of the responsibilities uniformed officers are currently handling. I also want to stress that any time a representative for Burbank Police Department can enter a situation with the public where they are unarmed, we lessen the risk of danger to the public and build trust in the community. Can you please address the policies of when and how a situation is determined to require an armed officer to be involved? How can we enhance unarmed divisions of the police department so that the armed officers are only answering highly dangerous situations? Additionally, has Burbank Police Department met with representatives from Black Lives Matter or other police reform groups who specifically address the way systemic racism plays a role in policing? If you haven't yet met with Black Lives Matter, would you please make a commitment to do so? Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, thank you for calling in. Do you have any commission response for that? There's one more caller.
Okay.
Mr. Anthony, go ahead with your comment.
Hello, my name is Constantine Anthony. I am a resident of Burbank. I am autistic, and so is my son. We are neurologically disabled. It is under my impression that a few years back, a Burbank police officer had ended up tasing a teenager, an autistic teenager, at a standard traffic stop. The teenager was not the person driving, yet did end up getting tased by a police officer. These are common situations that we see across the country. This is happening in police departments and cities throughout the United States. And we know as a society that the world is changing, that the understanding of what law enforcement is for and the job that they require to do is different now than it was even 20 or 30 years ago. I want to ask the police commission to really take a look at how we are operating here in this city. I'd like a few things to be discussed. One, why do we not have a specific hate crimes division in this city? There was a man whose car was tagged, keyed with words that are specifically targeting gay men, and yet this crime was not listed as a hate crime. This was recent. This is in the last 30 days. There are instances of violence happening throughout the city that are targeting black and Hispanic members of our community that are not used as hate crimes. I would also like the commission to reevaluate the police officers in our schools, the resource officers as they're called. We no longer live in a world where children need to be in constant contact with an officer of the law at their school. I would also like to have the police commission discuss the mental health team. Currently, our mental health team does great work reaching out to people who are in turmoil, people who are in distress, and yet every single one of those mental health team people, the workers for that group, they are partnered with an officer, not in uniform, but still an officer of the law who is there that can make arrests, that can intimidate the person who is needing help. So I would like the police commission to discuss removing and decoupling the mental health team from the police department. There are so many issues that we need to tackle. I would love to see us take on all 8 of the Use of Force Project protocols, the 8can'twait.org protocols. Currently, as we know, Burbank only has 4 of those 8 protocols. I would like to see the commission discuss how we implement the other 4. And finally, how do we hire from the community? We know our police department has a lot of officers who travel in 30, 40, even sometimes an hour, 60 minutes of a drive to come in from places that are so far outside the city of Burbank.
Sir, I'm
that
sorry.
they're just not
I hate
connected
to
with
interrupt
the
you, but the
community.
3 minutes are up.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your
Thank you
time.
very much for calling. Okay, we have another caller.
Thank you.
Heather, go ahead with your comment.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I think I have a delay on my video. But hello, my name is Heather Robb. I am thankful that we're having this conversation, and I look forward to it continuing in the July 14th meeting. And I want to just go ahead and echo all of the comments that have been made already. I very much agree with those and was kind of editing my comments as those were being made. And I want to make just basically 2 questions directly this evening that I would love to hear answers to. The first is, under current guidelines or laws, would a misconduct settlement against BPD be paid from the BPD budget, or would that be paid out from the city budget and thus use our community tax dollars to right the wrongs of members of BPD's force against community members? And my second question is, I know that we are currently hiring for our BPD officers, and I'm wondering what practices and safeguards are in place to make sure that we're not hiring new police with allegations of violence or misconduct in their history, both professionally in other departments throughout California and personally. I think both of these questions are hugely relevant in making sure that we continue to have safe officers on our streets, and those histories should be taken into account. So those are my 2 primary questions this evening, but I do also want to just echo the things that have been posed by the last 2 callers as well. Thank you.
Thank you for calling. Do we have any other callers? Okay, yes, we have another caller. I'm just going to reserve our response to the end when we have finished the amount of callers that we have.
Go ahead, Elliot, with your comment.
Thank you for your time. My name is Elliot Gannon. We live in Burbank, in one of the safest communities in America, and we spend over 250% more on our public safety from the city's budget. I want to echo what other callers have called in about, saying we need to demilitarize our police here in the city of Burbank. Armed units should only be deployed in dire needs. There's no reason for police to be coming out fully armed when there's somebody with mental health issues. Furthermore, we need to, as a community, be anti-racist. It's not enough to just not be racist, and our police need to be full front on that stance. Funding needs to be reallocated from the police's budget and spent on the education system. There's no reason that the Burbank Animal Shelter, which is under the police's budget, needs $150,000 for its superintendent to run a volunteer program. 18 weeks is a great start, but we need to adopt the people's budget. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you for calling. Next caller.
Alrighty, thank you.
Go ahead with your comment.
Good evening, members of the Police Commission, staff, and viewers at home. My name is Robert Hamill, and I'm a Burbank resident and VHS teacher. I wanted to share 6 ideas in regards to agenda item E2, future topics to be addressed by the Police Commission and ways to promote public engagement. Idea number 1, add a table of contents to the BPT policy manual so it's easier to read. Idea number 2, share out the training that Police Commission members get, if any, to assist in their advisory role. Idea number 3, initiate a study on the findings of the California Police Scorecard found at policescorecard.org, which is a project by Campaign Zero that utilizes data from 2016 to 2018 and is designed to help communities, researchers, police leaders, and policymakers take informed action to reduce police use of force and improve accountability and public safety in their jurisdictions. Some statistics from the BPD police scorecard that caught my eye. BPD received a score of 59% F, which was 32nd best out of 100. BPD has a higher misdemeanor arrest rate than 74% of the 100 departments analyzed. BPD used more or less lethal force, batons, strangleholds, tasers, other weapons, per arrest than 41% of departments. And BPD has more racial bias arrests than 36% of departments. Idea number 4, advise City Council to request BPD release the sort of statistics shared on the California Police Scorecard on their website. Idea number 5, share out the process that BPD uses to monitor racial profiling within the department in both arrests as well as stops. On a related note, I appreciated seeing on the BPD website that the officers had a training in which they watched a 2-hour video reviewing bias and racial profiling. Idea number 6, share out the main takeaways from participating in the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement Annual Conference, item E4 on your agenda. Related question to the Nicole Conference. Is there any chance City Council will actually allow for civilian oversight? My understanding is this commission serves only in an advisory role and has no oversight power. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next caller.
Go ahead, Layla, with your comment.
Hi, my name is Layla Faruzan, and I'm a resident here in Burbank for many years. I want to say I appreciate the Police Commission's oversight and the external audits that have been done in recent years. I also appreciate the webpage reference with some information relating to 8 Can't Wait, although it doesn't directly answer to the 4 items that the website says the department does not comply with. However, we can have the best policies and the best intentions, and still we need accountability on multiple levels beyond just the police commission or these external audits. So to that end, I'm asking if the department releases arrest data, use of force data, and more by race and ethnicity. If so, I haven't seen it. I haven't been able to find it. Publicly, that is. We know that our experiences with police differ greatly depending on the color of our skin, and in order to see how well we are doing to right those wrongs, we need this data publicly available. Now, I'm a researcher who works with data all day, and I realize there may be privacy concerns when dealing with small populations, but there has to be a way to make the data available to the public, again, with race and ethnicity available. Finally, I also want to echo the suggestion of another caller and urge the department to proactively pursue conversations with Black Lives Matter or another similar group. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, as of now, we do not have any more callers. Okay, basically, right now we have, what we do is having staff document each concern from each caller, and it's something that we're going to address in future meetings, some today and then some mostly in future meetings, because today this meeting's about establishing what we need to be addressing from the community as well as concerns as ourselves as commissioners, and come up with a way to discuss those concerns each meeting. We have one more caller.
Monica?
Yes.
Go ahead with your comment.
Hi, thank you. My name is Monica Grove. I'm calling because I wanted to know about the incident in which a family was mistaken for shoplifters, Costco, and guns was pulled on the family. What kind of accountability measures does BPD have in place to make sure that they're not armed and pulling guns on innocent people because they fit the profile or they may have had a similar car to someone who committed a crime? Thank you, and that's my time.
Thank you for calling. We have another caller.
Go ahead with your comment.
Hi, my name is Alejandra Arciniega. I'm a resident of Burbank. I've moved here from Elysian Valley about 3 years ago. I noticed that one of the issues we're having in our immediate neighborhood is that the neighborhood watch is a bit predatory on our block. Are there any ways in which you hope to retrain local residents to be less racist, and a way to pull people of color into the neighborhood watch so we are not being patrolled by the older, more established white residents in the community? I'd also like to see if you can address 8 Can't Wait and why we're not complying with all 8 of those demands. I would also like to see the police commission engage with Black Lives Matter or other groups similar so that we can proactively engage the community and not be reactive when events occur. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for calling. Okay, no other callers at this time. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait to have a response at the end of the meeting to, if the commissioners have any response to the callers, so that way we can get it all at once versus having to go back and forth during the meeting. So as callers call in, I'll interrupt what we're doing so that they can speak, and then we'll have a time to address it at the end. Okay, seeing as there's no more callers right now, we'll move on to number 2, item of business, discussion and direction regarding future topics to be addressed by the Police Commission in its advisory capacity to City Council on policy matters to promote public engagement. We have future topics that could include the police department providing an overview on topics. This is just an idea, just to give everybody an idea besides what they might have on their own. History of police reform in Burbank, use of force policy, the disciplinary process, officer training, police in Burbank schools, update on recently passed, proposed, and pending litigation on police reform, and any other ideas for community engagement, such as outreach to diverse communities and holding meetings in other locations for increased community engagement, which I do believe that these suggested topics touches on quite a bit of some of the callers' concerns. So I'll turn it over to my fellow commissioners to see if they have any ideas as to who or what they'd like to do. Commissioner Kabasi.
I'm trying to figure out, at this point, are we putting forward an agenda item for next time, or are we just throwing out a discussion of the topics? Because you kind of, what you listed there would be a good start. But would this be a list that we keep adding to every meeting, or are we trying to set something up and schedule for the next few meetings?
Since our meetings have now went to monthly, obviously we'll be having a larger agenda each month. So I think basically what we need to do is agendize the topics that we want discussed, and then amongst what I think right now what we could do is just kind of openly discuss what topics we're considering, and then at the end we'll agendize them maybe each month, because obviously each topic is pretty comprehensive, and the department's going to need to have time to prepare what they want to say and how they want to present it, and we need to get specific as to what we want in terms of information that we want to know. Like, we want information on the use of force policy. Well, the use of force policy is 18 pages long. What do we want to know about use of force? Do we want to know about the policy on when force is used, when we go hands-on, when the taser's deployed? We need to get specific as to what we want to know so that they can prepare themselves the best to their ability for each month that we have to discuss. Commissioner Cohen?
Yeah, I'm happy to discuss anything, but it seems to me we've been discussing these same things for years and years and years now. We'll continue to do the same thing. I guess. I don't know. We talk about use of force. We have a strategic plan that addresses everything we've been talking about here tonight. So I'm not sure what we're talking about.
Chief?
Let me make a couple of recommendations. So I think, Mr. Cohen, what we want to do is have a comprehensive list of possible topics. And at the conclusion of all of the discussions, we'll have to make recommendations to the council about what direction we are recommending the council go. So there are a lot of ideas that were presented tonight, and I believe those need to be considered. We do have a strategic plan, but I will say that's a living, breathing document that never dies, that we keep adding to it. So I think we need, in the spirit of that particular direction, that's what we need to do, is keep adding items on to that document to make sure that we invest in and make the proper decisions. But again, at the conclusion of all of the meetings up until December, we should come back with firm recommendations for the council.
So I think this is going to be about educating ourselves regarding some of these issues so that we can better understand them as a commission and understand the wants and the needs of the community so that we can make recommendations to the city council. So I think this is basically going to be an education process for ourselves to better understand the policies, as well as a better education process for the community that wants to know and understand what the rules are for the department in various different aspects. Litigation, uses of force, officer-involved shootings, complaints, etc. Have it broken down in easier terms to understand than just a manual.
You know, I could say in terms of recommendations also, for instance, we heard a lot about defunding the mental health evaluation team tonight. But there's an accompanying argument that can be made that irrespective of who responds to those calls, we need to ensure that all of our officers are trained relative to procedures for identifying and then dealing with the mentally ill, because we just don't respond to calls. We make observations on the street. So I think I heard Mr. Constantine Anthony make a comment about he's autistic and has concerns. But those are the types of things that we try to impart. The training gets imparted in our officers to be able to, number one, identify an autistic person, and then number two, what we do to ensure that the follow-up is correct. So those are topics where I think we can provide some details about, and if it appears to you that we need to go a step further, then that surely would form the basis for a recommendation.
Okay. Commissioners have any response? Commissioner Kabasi?
Okay, so then with that said, and I think also, following the national narrative, maybe I'd suggest, not necessarily reviewing the use of force policy, but getting to more of the meat of what some of the callers are asking about. Maybe a breakdown, I don't know, Chief, if it's possible to get a breakdown of use of force that does have a race breakdown in there, or maybe when mental issue came up. Is there any way to do that without the names? Would be my first part of the question. The second part of that would be, what's the disciplinary process? How can we be a little more open with it about when things go wrong? Not necessarily when things go right. When things go right, no one says anything. But when something goes wrong, how open can we be with the disciplinary process? Or is that something we can agendize to review? Because I think that's kind of some of the two biggest topics that we're gonna get. And if any of this information is already available online, you already have a racial breakdown, could we let the callers or the community know where they can get that? That's it.
Okay.
Just a brief response to that is that we do have some of those items broken down in terms of race, ethnicity, age, but we can come back and provide more detailed information on that.
Okay.
And then the commission can make recommendations if they think it's insufficient. And then in terms of the disciplinary process, that's already been identified as a topic. I think Mr. Kabasi knows that current legislation prevents us from talking about disciplinary proceedings. That's all confidential information, but so that the community understands, we can provide an explanation of that. Now, I think the other thing that we need to be prepared for, there is legislation that is currently being discussed at the federal and state levels that is going to have a big impact on probably a lot of our recommendations. So as this legislative session proceeds, we're going to see a lot of legislation introduced and possibly could be passed that's going to impact whatever we do.
Okay. So I think the best thing is obviously this is going to be an ongoing topic, is to progressively have this discussion and progressively deal with some of these issues. And as the chief said, there'll be federal things that will be possibly implemented that will change the way the department does things, and not just this department, but departments statewide, state and countrywide, that will affect what we do and don't do here, recommend, or possibly recommend or not recommend. So I think we kind of have to have a comprehensive outlook on all the topics and kind of see what happens also legislatively to be able to facilitate the oversight here and understand what's happening here and across the country.
So I know we can't presuppose what's going to happen with the legislature. So I think in good faith, what we need to do is move forward with what we consider to be the most salient or important items that need to be reported out on.
Okay.
There's another one if I could suggest. We're talking about what the community needs, but also understand that the police are part of the community. And if you look at President Obama's 21st century task force report on policing, one of the 6 pillars in that report is officer safety and wellness. So perhaps we could talk about what we do to make sure that our officers are well and the type of services that are available for them. And again, I say that because we're all in this together, and that may be a good topic so that people understand the follow-up processes for somebody that is experiencing on the law enforcement side issues.
Okay. Yeah, I think that the key here is communication between ourselves as in the commission and communication with staff and command staff as well as the department. I think that's the way we're going to be able to handle the changes that are going to be necessary in order to have the best department that we can have. Okay, any other commission response regarding these possible topics? Anything wants to discuss? Commissioner Chapman?
A couple of things. One of the items, I would not be against having a speaker or several speakers from a Black Lives Matter organization address our group and express their thoughts to us here. Another area that I think that we might consider is that there are some protections for officers as well as other people that are not afforded a regular citizen, specifically because they're an officer. And perhaps somebody from our police union would like to discuss some issues about any changes that might come about in that area. I suspect that our city attorney would also like to participate in something like that. One thing that I want to mention, though, is that our department seems to be quite progressive. In the letter that the chief had put out on June the 5th, mentions a couple of things that are not something that are ordinarily common amongst a lot of police departments. For example, our accreditation. And I think the chief, if he'd like, could give some more comments about that. But this is not something that everybody has. We're a little bit ahead of the schedule on that. And as far as doing some types of review, we have our city council came through with doing an office of independent review from an outside third party. We get an annual report on that. And then I guess the area where we've discussed here on our commission is the task force, the 21st Century Policing Task Force and Community Policing. I'm not sure that all of the people that are calling in or making comments are aware of some of the things that go along in our police department that don't happen in other police departments. And I'm really proud of our police department for the work that they do. Not saying that we're perfect, but we are certainly on the right path, I think. I guess if I think I'll leave it at that. Yeah, that's all I have to say on that.
Okay.
Madam Chair, can I ask for a clarification from Mr.
Sure.
Mr. Chapman, you mentioned there are special protections for officers that are afforded to them due to their status as peace officers. Are you talking about immunities in lawsuits and things of that nature?
Yes, exactly. And that is something that's being reviewed across the country. But maybe we can give it a personal level as in our local police department if the police union representative would like to discuss that with our group and share with the community as well any concerns that are and there could be concerns on both directions there. But at least that there's an open dialogue.
Okay. Any other commission response? Okay. Then I guess what we should do is agendize at the end of the meeting the things that we want to kind of lay out and which meetings we want to have, what discussions, so that we can kind of even it out so that it's not all in one meeting, so that we can kind of educate ourselves progressively here. And I think the whole idea is to stay on top of this prior to any type of incident that would occur. So the whole idea is to communicate and keep the public informed and keep ourselves informed so that we can be the best that we can be. Any other response? Commissioner Kabasi?
Are we responding at this point to some of the callers, or are we still responding just to this topic, finding topics?
Right now, I was just kind of sticking with the topics because I wasn't sure if we'd have any more callers. That way we wouldn't have to keep interjecting. At the moment, we haven't had any more, so I just want to make sure that we can kind of keep that all together, the response together at once, versus having to do it time and time again.
Okay. I'll wait for that.
Yeah, I'll bring that up right before the end, just so that we can get everybody in.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So one thing that I wanted to say to try to help manage the meeting, because there are lots of things for future meetings to discuss, is that you don't need to necessarily agendize what you want at which meeting. The purpose of today was to really get a good sense of what topics that the commissioners feel we need to discuss in the future, and also get public comments, obviously, to see what the public might want you to discuss. And we have a help list, in essence, to assist us as we move forward.
Got it.
It's kind of difficult to know right now necessarily what you want next month or the month after that. So to the extent that that might be difficult, you also have the July 14th meeting with the joint meeting with the City Council. That may also change things based upon your discussion there as to what you want agendized and when. So my recommendation would be not necessarily to put dates to the topics, but just make a list of topics that you believe are important. Unless you as a commission feel that there's something you absolutely want to hear at the next meeting.
Okay, so then basically we can just have that discussion every month versus having to specifically agendize it, I'm understanding?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, so that we can be more flexible. And as the movement continues, as current events continue, that also gives you some more flexibility.
Okay.
And then also, just as a matter of housekeeping, you should close public comment. You can still respond to public comment.
Okay.
Or are you trying to leave it open in case people are late calling in? I'm not.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I wasn't
Generally,
quite sure
we
how
want-
that was working either because we'd passed it and then callers had called in. But I've been notified now that it's closed. So the next thing that we'll do is address the callers, that anybody wants to address them. So I wasn't kind of confused on the calling system since it's new.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's all new. Okay, so then if there's nothing else right now, we're going to talk about this and we'll do the response to the public comment. Anybody else have anything they want to discuss regarding this? Okay, then
One suggestion.
yes.
I would like to have like a report at each of our meetings from the city attorney's office, basically on the status of legislation in Sacramento, so that we kind of know what's coming down the pike and we won't be surprised by anything. And it keeps the public and the commission all at the same level, so we know what's going on. Thank you.
Okay.
So we do have that past, proposed, and pending legislation on police reform. But if something comes up right before a meeting that we can update the commission on, happy to present that so that you are aware. But we do plan to have a comprehensive agenda item to discuss legislation.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
if you don't mind, this is Amy Albano. I just wanted to add to that there is so much legislation pending on so many topics that if there's something really like at the forefront that we believe you should know, we'll bring it back. But otherwise, we really were hoping to do it in one meeting, as Ms. O was just saying, rather than us trying to keep coming back every single meeting. And I think, so I think our commitment to you, if this is what the board wants, is that we would, with the police, make sure if anything happens, like we know there's stuff happening at the federal level, but if it actually goes beyond the House into the Senate to the president, that we would let you know that. But otherwise, we were thinking later in the process might be a good time to bring back what's happening before you do any final recommendations to the council.
Okay, that would probably be most effective and time effective so that we are aware of what's happening and then we can make decisions from that. Because it's doing double the work if it's going to be something that overrides what we want to do and it won't have any say in it anyway. So I think that would be, if that pleases you, Commissioner Ellman, they would just bring back to us the most pertinent information that's going to affect our decision-making process.
That sounds great, but I'd like to also know legislation that doesn't make it, that something might be coming and it's stuck in committee and just tells, hey, it's stuck, it's not moving, don't have to worry about it.
So again, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
To the extent that we can, we'll try to do that, but you have to realize there are so many bills moving through. We're not always aware of when something gets stuck unless we're really trailing it. So to the extent that we can, we will try to provide that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like they'll give us what they can give us when we need it pertains to us. Be as informed as we possibly can. Commissioner Kabasi, was that a hand raise?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. For the city attorney, maybe is there a way? I know I used to follow it before. Can't we kind of follow it on our own? I used to follow it through the legislative site for California, and there's a federal one. I mean, is that kind of the same? I mean, you're going to get the same stuff. So as individuals, I think we can do that. And Mike, Commissioner Ellman, if you don't have that link, I can certainly dig it up, or maybe the city attorney's office has it and they can send it to us. And so we can follow it on our own and not necessarily require your office to pass that information along.
I'm sure that we can look for that link. I'm not familiar with it per se, but I'm sure we might be able to come up with something where you can follow pending legislation that has to do with police. And I'm sure that Ms. O can look for that and provide it to the commissioners for your own. And again, we're more than happy to bring forward stuff that we know is going on and is pertinent. We do have, the city does have lobbyists at the state and federal level, and we can make sure that these things are on their radar and that they're keeping us up to date, as well as we're very involved in the League of California Cities, who also tries to track legislation that's going to be affecting cities and local control and other things. So hopefully with all of that, we'll be able to have a really good insight, as well as, your police command staff is also tracking legislation. So I think between all of us, we'll be able to make sure we get what we need. And but we will look for those kind of links to send out. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chapman.
Something that we discussed lately was Nicole, which our group is a member of. I'm wondering if we would like to discuss some of the items that were listed in their statement on June 2nd about meaningful reform. Our commission is not an oversight commission, and the Nicole, which is the civilian oversight of law enforcement is an organization that we follow and attend their meetings. But I'm not sure that we are following the direction that they're giving, such as that they've listed in that June 2nd letter. We do not have a a direct oversight mechanism rather than our group, which is not an oversight committee or oversight commission. So I'm suggesting maybe the other commissioners would like to discuss a little bit something if we want to add to something there, and maybe hear their thoughts.
Okay. Any commission response to that? Commissioner Cohen?
We are not equipped. Oh, sorry about that. To impose discipline. The city doesn't set us up that way. We wouldn't even want to do that unless we were indemnified. That's not going to happen. We're not that kind of commission. Most of the small cities that have a commission that's involved in that, first of all, you got to be trained. You got to ride with the police. You've got to take a lie detector test. You got to be vetted. That didn't happen here. So I don't think we can be that kind of commission given the way we're set up today.
Madam Chair, before we have more discussion on the item, this agenda item is really to discuss whether or not we want to have more in-depth discussion about that. So Mr. Chapman put forth the possibility of discussing the Nicole statement that was set forth on June 2nd. So rather than debate what this commission is and
agendize it
and how that, right, we should put that into consideration for a future agenda item.
Okay.
We're still on topic with number 2.
Okay, so he can bring that up at the end for a possible agenda item for the future.
Or as we talked about, all of this discussion is giving the department ideas about things that need to be discussed.
Right.
So I know typically in the past we have set forth an future agenda item section where the commission as a group would decide what they want to hear at future items, or sometimes you would vote not to hear something on a future agenda item. But for purposes of today, and as we discussed, I think the most effective way, rather than going through each of the topics that are listed, plus all the things that the public comments brought forth, would be just to have the discussion, and then if the commission is good with it, let the police department take all of that back, digest it, so that they can bring forth items.
The information.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Sounds like a plan. Commissioner Kabasi?
Okay, so with that, then I'm just going to suggest that if it hasn't already been done, all of those items that were listed as suggestions there, police and Burbank schools, officer training, that we move those forward as, in the same big pool, so that we look at those and have the department look at those, not necessarily prepare an answer for them, but know that they're coming down the pike at some point. And then in our next meeting, if we find that there are other things that we missed here, we can add those to the pool. Are you saying that that's permissible?
I think it's a roving discussion. Correct me if I'm wrong, City Attorney. It's like just gonna be a roving discussion of all of these topics for the next, the remainder of the year, I believe.
Yes, and then the ultimate goal is that towards the end of the year, whenever we get through all of these topics, because you will be meeting on a monthly basis, that the commission as a body come up with recommendations on all of these topics, and then set that forth in front of council to let council know what you believe is the path for the police department. With your
the changes that they want to see made. Okay.
Yes, which is why the 14th meeting that you have with them may also inform, again, more topics for you to discuss.
Right. From that report.
Correct.
Okay.
So can we then just say all of these items plus Commissioner Chapman and Elman's suggestion, and then move on to the next item? That's a pretty big pool, and then next month we'll add more. But just for the record, all the items listed under items of business under A, 2A, are included in our future discussions.
Yes.
That's it. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Chief.
What I tried to do is summarize from what we heard tonight, and I would recommend that the department reach out to Black Lives Matter and request that they participate in one of the meetings. And then the terminology now is, I think, we have defunding and decoupling, but take a look at the involvement of the police in mental health, school resource officers, and some of the other areas that are on that people can, animal shelter, for instance, that we've gotten recommendations that we decouple from. So that's a second item. The other one that I think was mentioned predominantly tonight was 8 Can't Wait. We can make a presentation relative to why we're doing what we're doing. And then, of course, I believe we can make a presentation relative to the ethnic backgrounds of people that are stopped and give, number one, the state of the law, and then how we comport with that, understanding there's new legislation coming forward, RIPA, which is the Racial Identification Act. So that is something that's going to require our involvement in state participation, where that's automatically reported. What we can do is make a presentation, because that's going to cost the city money. And it's something that has already been addressed at the state level, so that's why we will comport as of this year, the conclusion of this year.
Okay. All right. Anyone else responds to that? Okay. Okay. I think this would be appropriate time to have the commissioner response to the public comment, seeing that our calls are closed, and if there's anybody that has anything. As the city attorney already explained, we're going to be delving into a lot of those topics that were brought up throughout our future meetings, and addressing some of those concerns through the department, and them explaining some of the questions that were asked. So besides that, if there's anything that any of the commissioners want to address right now from the callers. Okay. I'll go, Commissioner Kabasi.
Well, I just want to address, I think, a couple of them. I'll do it kind of all together. I know one caller had mentioned something about the makeup of the commission, the makeup of our police department, and just to stay on that topic and the racial topic, it's unfortunate. We have these meetings. We've had these meetings for years. It's unfortunate that an event like what happened in Minneapolis has to happen for people to call in and participate in the commission and become aware of some of the things that they want changed. My answer is, it's all out there. It's available for you. You vote for the city council. It's your choice. You pick the people that are there. They pick the people on this commission. So pick the people you want to represent you, elect them to office, and then hold them accountable to do what you want. That's how this works. And as far as the police department makeup is concerned, it's the same way. They're the ones who hire the city manager, who hires the chief of police, who sets the example for the entire police department. Honestly, I think our police department's pretty diverse compared to some other ones. But the answer is participate in your community when something isn't happening that's bad. And that's how you stay on top of these things. The 21st century policing, that was multi-components and one of its community members. So, you have the police, they're doing their thing, you have the city council thing, and the community has to do their part. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioner response? Okay. Commissioner Cohen.
I appreciate everybody's concern and the issues they've raised. But honestly, I don't see those issues in Burbank. So I'm not sure, we can talk about it for sure. But systemic racism in the police department? I don't think so. I've never run across an incident like that here. I never did when I was working with the DA's office for 30 years with LAPD. I think these catchphrases are on the internet and coming out of everybody's mouth, and they're not necessarily applicable, especially not in Burbank.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Ullman.
Yeah, I would like to just say that I can't understand how everything fell apart so quickly. Prior to this pandemic, when we had a commission meeting, we were lucky to get 4 or 5 people in the audience. So now everything has to be changed. Change is good, but it has to be planned, and there has to be a reason behind it. And like Mr. Cohn was saying, we're a Burbank Police Department. There are major issues in law enforcement across the country, but I don't know if the Burbank Police Commission should be at the level of change for the entire country. Also, I would have to say that a lot of the callers, we've always had a police community class, and the class is there to educate the community on the workings of the police department. I went through it years ago, and it was great. And I would just think that people are right in questioning how things are, and maybe things do have to change, but I think you have to do your own research to bring about change. And I would really think that these people, all residents, should have the opportunity to go through the community police class, because you do get to see the department and you make your own decision of what you think and you agree with and what you don't agree with, but you're exposed to it. And I think it helps you make an educated decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other response? Commissioner Kabasi?
I also wanted to add to that, everyone's talking about the national narrative and what's happened. We have to also be careful on how we apply that. Yes, we should look into all of these things. We should be reviewing all of these policies and the processes. But we need to stay focused on Burbank. And what happened in Minneapolis and in other places, those areas need to hold their folks accountable. We need to focus on what's going on in Burbank, not necessarily, paint the same brush that your, Minneapolis PD or other PDs are having to deal with as Burbank. Let's hold Burbank PD accountable for their actions. Let's hold Burbank PD accountable for their inactions, for the problems that they have. I think that's what everybody wants. I think people don't want to be judged when they're in the street, and I think we have to apply that the same way. Yes, they're held to a higher standard because they're the police, but let's be thoughtful and fair in how we approach this and give them an opportunity and recognize where they do things right at the same time as we review processes and policies to ensure that they meet the community's needs. So I left that out earlier, but I also want to make sure that we're not singling out members of the police department and saying that you're the same as those in Minneapolis. I know some people think that, but that's not going to be my position. I'm going to treat them for the individual department they are. Thank you.
Okay, any other commission response? Okay, the only thing I would like to say is that I think a big part of this and getting through this and coming out on the end with the best product possible is educating people about the rules, about the laws, about the policies. I think that the thing that I have seen the most that's been not helpful throughout this process, well, not with just Burbank, but mostly across the country, is that misinformation. Something posted on social media, people pick it up and run with it, and it's not true. So I think the most important thing here is we stick to the rules, we stick to the policies, and we educate the people that want to know about those policies so that we can put our best foot forward in making a decision on what we want to recommend for the best outcome. I think a knee-jerk reaction to something that didn't happen here is not something that we should do. I think we need to think it out, we need to talk about it, we need to hear people, and we need to look at the policies and see what changes we think need to be made and put our best foot forward with the actual facts and the actual information, not theories that we hear, because I think that's kind of where things start to fall apart. So thank you, everybody that called in. If your specific concern was not a... City Attorney, go ahead.
Yes. So for the most part, the caller's comments don't actually call for a really quick, brief response, which is what the Brown Act requires you to do. But there was one question regarding payment of any lawsuit, any settlements or any payments of lawsuits where the city has to pay out for police misconduct and where that money comes from. And that's one thing that I can answer briefly if the chair would like.
Okay, yes, please, go ahead.
So the city has a general liability and insurance fund. It's called a liability fund. And each department pays into that fund based upon a history of what kind of lawsuits that particular department may have had. So the police department also pays into that to that fund. The police department's budget is part of the general fund, and as you may be aware, the general fund is the general budget of the city. The general fund pays into that liability fund to cover claims associated with all general fund operations. That includes the police department. So while any payments are made out of the general fund, the police department budget does pay into that liability fund. So it's interrelated in that sense. I don't know if hopefully that answers the question that the caller had about where that money comes from when we have to pay out for lawsuits.
Okay, hopefully so. As I was getting ready to say, if your specific question wasn't addressed right here, right now, I would encourage you to stay tuned each month, because that is where we're going to get the breakdown of the information from the department that will answer those specific concerns. As I stated already, the staff has already written down each concern that the callers had, and it will be addressed in the coming meetings. Any other comments or concerns from anybody? Okay, moving on. We have the joint city council meeting planned with ourselves and the city council on July 14th to hear the report, the annual report from OIR. I'll be in attendance along with commissioners, depending upon how we're going to do this via Zoom or however. Any questions on any of that? Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So going back to item number 2, there was a lot of discussion about subtopic A. I don't know, were there any other discussions about subtopic B or C, which was the other ideas for community engagement?
That might have gotten lost in the shuffle there. Any other ideas from the commissioners on community engagements, such as outreach and other meeting locations?
I have one question about that.
Sure.
The mission statement of the Burbank Police Department reads, "Our mission is to protect life and property, provide professional police services, and work in partnership with the community." I would like to hear from the department on exactly what does work in partnership with the community mean to them.
Okay, is that something we want to address now, or we want to make that?
I don't think that is exactly how our agenda has been agendized. The topics have been agendized to address Mr. Ellman's question specifically now, because I think it will require something more than a brief response.
Okay.
But to the extent that again, it's another area to discuss. I think it's a good area. It falls right into the other items that we have listed.
Okay.
We can add that on.
Okay, so staff can document that for part of the information we're going to receive at future meetings.
Yes, luckily this meeting will be recorded because there's been a lot of information and we'll be able to go back.
Poor
and
Sherry's typing away over here.
Very
Commissioner Cohen?
Speaking of the joint meeting, is that going to be electronic again, or what's the plan? And it doesn't look like we're going to be out of the woods on this virus in 2 weeks, so.
If I may, Madam Chair.
Yes.
The expectation, I think we were all being very hopeful that maybe it could be in person, but it seems unlikely given the recent state of affairs.
Okay.
So it will more than likely be done as a WebEx as we're doing here and as the city council does.
Okay.
And we wish and would hope that I think the plan is as soon as we are allowed to have gatherings of certain sizes, that we will attempt to start doing in-person meetings. And we also very aware that what the road that you're embarking on along with the department will work best if we can do it in person. So we're really hoping that we can get to that point. And so part of B was hoping that the commission would agree that we would take some of the meetings out into the community. And that was done with the commission back in 2011, 2012. So I think we'd like to do the same thing.
I think the last one we had was at Luther Middle School, I think in 2014.
Okay, so you probably have a better memory than I do on what the date
Not
was.
much, but I think it was 2014.
On the agenda from a couple, 3-4 months ago that we were going to discuss it in the
that
future.
was something we were going to discuss at I think one of the meetings that got canceled due to COVID. Is that we had decided that we were going to try to do that before all this happened. So
if the commission's will is to go ahead with that.
I think everybody is in agreement, but we could do that. Is anybody opposed to taking it to the public? No. Okay. So I think that's a good plan.
And so I think the other thing the commission did say they wanted to have the department and have Black Lives Matter come. And so the other part of B that I think is important is whether there's any other suggestions on diverse groups or groups that can help with diversity that we should either be inviting to the meeting or that the department could go meet on their own. Suggestions of who the department should be engaging with, not necessarily having to take up a police commission meeting with, but engagement by the department.
Okay, so is there any other groups that the commissioners would like either the department to meet with or invite to come to one of our meetings? Commissioner Kabasi.
Well, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Still says muted here. I don't know if maybe someone from the Human Relations Council, from the city's group, could come and talk to us. I'd also like to see someone from the Burbank POA have a discussion with us, or maybe with Black Lives Matter. But I think coming through the commission might be easier for some folks. They might be hesitant to, from some of the emails I've received. Some people would like to go to they're outside the police department to talk and kind of introduce them then to the police department. But I think it should be done in both areas. I think they should be welcome to come to the police commission and have that discussion at their meeting, and the police department should also reach out to the various groups. I think doing them in tandem is the right thing to do at this time. Let whoever wants to speak to anyone, go ahead and do it.
Okay, I think not speaking for everybody, but I think it would be best if anybody wants to speak and they come here and speak to us. That way it's not just a closed door discussion where the information can be sent out to the public, and that way they can be aware that we're in conversation with them and understand what the wants and needs are of these other groups, so that it can kind of be an open dialogue. But, you know, whatever anybody wants, if they want to speak with the department on their own, that's fine too, as long as they make us aware of, you know, that there's conversations so that the public's aware of everybody that we are in partnership with.
Yes, I just want to make sure that door is left open for the police commission. Anyone who wants to come to the police commission is more than welcome.
Right, definitely. Okay, so any other suggestions from any other commissioners regarding groups or anybody we want to officially reach out to? Okay. Okay, that was that, and then, let's see. And then I guess we need to possibly come up with suggestion with the meeting location. That would be maybe for another meeting, I'm assuming?
Well, I think now that given the extension of the COVID crisis,
we're not going to be able to do that.
It could be,
right.
The question could be asked and answered, but I think what we need to remain flexible.
Okay.
We have already reached out to to Burbank Unified School District. We had a conversation with them today.
Okay.
Because one of our thought processes was to perhaps get together with students as a properly interested party to receive input from them. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to have to wait and see if that's going to be viable.
Okay, so I guess at the last minute, maybe it could get changed to a different location where.
Certainly.
Okay.
So
we're allowed to.
So I think we have to have that as an option. One of the other suggestions I would make is that I know we're going to talk about Nicole, but the commissioners are going to be participating in that. I believe it starts at the end of this month, and they're going to be a series of presentations over an extended period of time. But I would think that with the participation of the 5 members of the commission, that there are going to be topics presented that we may want to discuss here, because these are all very timely reform type items.
Okay. Yeah, which brings us to the last item here, the participation in the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. It's 32 webinars between July 20th through September 22nd. Any discussion on that from any of the commissioners? No? Okay. Commissioner Kabasi. Go ahead.
Is this going to be open to all the commissioners, or are we just selecting a couple like we do for the annual?
I think because we can't go there due to what's going on, I think they're going to be doing the webinars. I think it's for any or all of us.
Okay.
Is that correct, Chief?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. No travel required.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about that?
So I will say that I think it's the last item on the agenda here, participation in the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement annual conference, 32 webinars between July 20 and September 22nd. So I think what we need to do, we've not received a package yet of the scheduling of those particular presentations, but I think and I would suggest is that each member pick topics that interest them, but there are probably going to be some that are really, I think, conducive to discussion, and perhaps what we need to do is make sure that a couple folks watch those presentations to bring the information back to us.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on that? Questions? Okay. Our next meeting is definitely with the City Council and OIR on July 14th. I think we need to schedule another meeting shortly after that so that we can get to work on the things that we need to, because we're not going to be able to actually have a full meeting with the joint City Council meeting. It'll be more like us just joining their meeting for the report, so we need to schedule our own meeting for July. So the dates that were possibly suggested were the 21st or the 22nd. Does anybody have preference on any of those dates?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We were able to do your meeting this evening on a Tuesday night because the City Council was dark.
Okay.
But Tuesdays really aren't going to work as we move forward. Like the 21st.
Got it.
July councils meet.
Okay. So does it matter any other day, or is it just the Tuesday's the issue?
I think we have to clear also the meetings because there are some other meetings that are televised like yours is. And so part of it is held in council.
Okay.
So I'm not sure of the meeting that date. You used to have Wednesday nights, right?
It's the third Wednesday, so it would technically be July 22nd.
So you might want to stick
to that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, and then we can, I'm sure the department can double check to make sure that there's no problem with the room.
You know what, correction, the third is actually the 15th. It would be the day after the city council meeting. So is that something that everybody wants to do, or?
You might want to give yourselves at least a
minute.
week so that the department's prepared to be able to have a
Respond
meeting
from
that's-
that.
Yeah, and that's fruitful for you.
Okay, so does anybody have an issue with the 22nd? That way it gives us an entire week to digest what we heard from OIR and have the department have time to prepare. Is everybody good with the 22nd? Any objections? Okay, no. So seeing no objections, we'll make our meeting July 22nd, 2020 at 6 o'clock.
With just the caveat that we need to confirm we can
Yes.
that we have the chambers.
Barring any other issues. If there's an issue, then we will have to deal with that and solve it by email.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have anything else they want to add? Because we are now at the end of our meeting. Okay. Seeing as not, then we will convene next on July 14th at the joint city council meeting. We're adjourned.